Hi there, I'm Patrick and welcome to this tutorial about Blazor WebAssembly. This is a complete course about the full CRUD operations, about all CRUD operations, meaning create, read, update and delete. So we are building a full stack Blazor WebAssembly application. It is ASP.NET Core hosted. This means we have a Blazor WebAssembly client, we have a Web API server project, and we have a shared project for our models. And what we do then is we will, make CRUD operations, meaning we will use the HTTP request methods get, post, put, and delete to create objects, delete them, update them, and read them, of course. And in this little example, I will create a superhero database. It's not really a database. As you can see in the course or in this tutorial that I sometimes talk about Entity Framework, but this tutorial was longer than I expected. I have recorded it already and now I'm doing the intro. And either way, sometimes some errors happen because this was completely unprepared. I had no script, nothing at all. So this is really kind of live, but still, I hope you learned something. It is complete. The code is online on GitHub. Just check out the link in the video description to get the complete code. And if you want to see how I built this whole thing and where the errors happened and so on, sometimes it's great to see this, you know, when you see how an application is built and where the errors happen and where we have to debug. We have a really short debug session in this course. So yeah, long story short, maybe you want to check it out. I hope you learned something. If so, I'd really appreciate it if you click the like button. Maybe you even want to subscribe to my channel. It does make a difference. Thank you very much. Maybe you also want to subscribe to my newsletter. In this case, you would get emails from me about videos like that and maybe even early access to upcoming courses like the e-commerce course, but I promise I won't spam you. Actually, I rarely send an email. It's just once a month. Maybe. Anyways, that's the newsletter, and thank you so much to all my supporters buying me a coffee. Really need that coffee because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do all this. Okay, enough about that, and now enjoy the course. All right, we start by creating a new project with Visual Studio. I have version 2019 and that's the community edition. This totally works for us. And you can also see here already that I use Blazor WebAssembly apps quite often since this is the recent project template here. But if you don't find it at first, you can of course either select it here or search for it. So simply enter Blazor and then you already see Blazor WebAssembly app here. And this is exactly what we want, not a Blazor server app. We want a Blazor WebAssembly app. So this is a typical single page application where most of the work is done on the client. And let's call this project maybe Superhero DB for Superhero Database, because this is the example project I want to use here. And that's how I want to show you how you can implement all the CRUD operations with Blazor WebAssembly. After that, you see that the current target framework is .NET 5, so please make sure that you have the SDK installed for .NET 5, and then configure for HTTPS is okay. This simply means that when you enter an HTTP address, that it will redirect the call or the route to the HTTPS one. We do not need authentication here. We won't use authentication in this tutorial, but what we want to check here is ASP.NET Core hosted, because this means, as you can see here, it includes an ASP.NET Core host for the Blazor WebAssembly app. This simply means that we get 3 projects: the client project, the server project, which is a web API in essence, and also a shared project where we can build all our models then. So this is really what we need. And with that, we can also add an entity framework, for instance, with a SQL Server database and so on. And this was funny, I just updated Visual Studio and now there's a new update available, but I think this also works with this version here. All right, we've got our clean project here. You see a bunch of files that have been generated for us, but let's keep it like that, and I will explain all the things along the way. In the Blazor WebAssembly Full Stack Bootcamp, I start with this example project and explain all the files, the folders in detail, but I think for this relatively quick tutorial, I would say it's enough to just talk about this stuff along the way. So as you can see, we've got a client project, the server project, and the shared project here. And you can already see here this in this example project, we've got one model, and this is the weather forecast. And we will add a superhero model here for our implementations. But I would say before we start with the code, let's run the application. We can either use the run button on top, or what I like to do is actually use the package manager console. Because as you can see in a minute, we first have to be in the right directory. So we change the directory to superhero DB and then server, because the server project in this solution here is the starting project. And then I like to use the command .NET watch run instead of simply .NET run, because in this case, when we change the code, we've got a hot reload. So we do not have to stop the application and run it again or start it again. It simply changes and reloads along the way. And as you can see here now, it is already here. I like to have the developer tools open in Chrome here, because then I can see what is going on. And I think the most important example here, or the most important page in this example project, is really the weather forecast, because here already we are making a call, and this tutorial is all about the CRUD operations. And this is in essence already a read operation, because we are doing, or we making a get call here. As you can see, this is the URL, this is the request method get, and we get the status code 200 back with all the weather forecasts. But instead of having a look at this, let's build this by ourselves now, and then we will learn this one step after another together with Blazor, of course, because this is not only about the web API, this is about Blazor WebAssembly as well. But again, first the model. So we right click the shared project, hit add, and then a new class. And let's call this class superhero. Make sure to write it correctly, superhero. That's okay, I guess. We make this thing public and then give this some properties. I use the built-in snippet prop. So just enter prop and then hit tab twice, and then you should be able to see the property here. I'd like to add an ID. Maybe we will make this, or maybe we'll create a table with entity framework later or in another episode. I don't know. So an ID is always good to have, maybe, because this is an entity, in my opinion, that can be stored in a database in this way. And then I would like to add a first name. Let's keep this simple. Then another string, which is the last name. And then also a hero name. And maybe we can also add a list with a team. Or not a list, let's say we add another class here for the comic. Let's do it like that. Yeah, the comic would be great. Of course, we have to add the class then here. So we've got a little relation, and with that we add another model. So add a new item, which is in the comic. We could also call it team, or I don't know, for the Avengers maybe. But let's just say we want to use the team, the comic here. And this is the either Marvel or DC, simple as that. So we have the class comic. We again add an ID here, and then also a string which is simply the name of the comic, like that, and there we would have a relationship then. Okay, this is, I think, enough. Not only one model, a little bit more with a little relationship. So maybe that would be interesting for Entity Framework. All right, so we've got our models. And then the next thing, we are still in the backend, essentially. And the next thing is actually a controller here. You can see the weather forecast controller. And here's the get call, which is, well, the read part in essence of the CRUD operations. But let's add a new controller for our superheroes. So we add a controller here. You do not have to select class. We add a new controller. And then we choose an API controller and we use an empty one because this is, in my opinion, the best way to learn. And we call this superhero controller. And in here you can already see some attributes and a class this controller inherits from. This is the controller base. As it says here, it's a base class for an MVC model view controller without view support. We don't need view support because our view in this case is the Blazor WebAssembly client. So this is already great. And here the route is interesting. This attribute is there to, well, specify the route of this web service. And here it is API, and then controller in brackets just means that this will be the name of the controller. So the term that is before the controller term, in our case, this simply would be superhero. And then API controller, as it says here, indicates that a type and all derived types are used to serve HTTP API responses. So in essence, we can use this as a web service, web API in essence. And now already we can create our first get call to read superheroes, but we want to return some superheroes. So maybe we just add a list of superheroes here because we do not have a database yet. So let's simply create a list of superheroes, and we have to add a reference here. I did this with Control period on the keyboard, and as you can see here, using superhero DB shared, and then we get the class of superheroes. Let's call this list superheroes, and this is a new list of superheroes. And let's say we already add a new superhero here with the first name Peter, last name Parker. What's the hero name? You know it. First I have to make like that. By the way, I have no script here. So maybe, yeah, if you see me doing some weird stuff, that's because I do not have a script. And this is kind of live. So please bear with me if I do something wrong. But I still think this is a great way to learn because then you will see what can happen with no script, actually. Yeah, superhero, exactly. The hero name is Spider-Man, of course, not superhero. And the comic, let's add some comics. I know I could have used enums for that, but let's just use the class here. So let's add a list of comics as well. Got the comics here. This is a new list of comics, and these are quite simple. So the first comic would be with the name Marvel, and another one is the name DC. And let me think about that. Now we could add the ID actually. Yeah, let's keep it like that. And now here I would like to add the first one. Yeah, this won't work. That's true. Make the static, and then this works. Okay. And then let's add another one. Just 2 for now. And this would be a guy called Bruce. Last name Wayne. And of course, you're absolutely right. This is Batman. And here we see that this guy belongs to DC. Okay, and now the get call. This is a public. I'd like to make these calls asynchronous already. So let's make this public async method returning a task then with an iAction result, because the iAction result enables us to return an HTTP status code in essence. And we call this thing get superheroes, maybe like that. And here we say return OK, because this already returns the 200 OK response. As you can see here, other options would be something like bad requests or a 404 not found, like that. But here we can simply say OK, and then we return our heroes. All right. As you can see here, asynchronous isn't really necessary in this case. I'm just used to implement asynchronous calls here because actually, or usually, I use Entity Framework and make asynchronous calls with Entity Framework, because Entity Framework calls or makes calls to the database and then returns the stuff. I don't know, and then we use LINQ with asynchronous calls and so on. So yeah, again, bear with me, no script. I think you get the idea here. Yeah, again, maybe we add Entity Framework in another episode, or maybe in this one. I don't know. Let's have a look at the time, and then we'll see. Anyways, get superheroes, return the heroes. Great, this already works. I saved this, and I hope that when I save this that it rebuilds, but it doesn't. So maybe we have to save something else, but it does not recognize. Now it recognizes the save. Okay. So Microsoft, I think we have to do something here with Visual Studio. The save was recognized, or the change here, and now we go back to the browser and let's try to get the heroes in the address bar. So we just enter API and then superhero, and we get our superheroes. Isn't that nice? Of course, this doesn't look really nice, so maybe we can change this with the help of our Blazor WebAssembly client. So let's go back, and now we enter the client. As you can see here, there are some files. We've got pages, we've got shared stuff. These things are Razor components, and let's have a look at the index Razor, for instance. And in here we see HTML. We see some weird stuff here. This looks like HTML, but this is actually a component, a Razor component, a shared component in this case, called survey prompt. And we can have a look here at the survey prompt component. And here you can also see that we've got some C# code. So it's a mix of HTML, CSS if you want, and also C# code. And this title thingy here is a parameter, and this is already the first way to communicate between components. So you see that the parent component, the index Razor components with the communicates with the child component, the survey prompt, via this parameter title. And the title here, how is Blazor working for you, is exactly that, what you see here. That's the stuff. And when we change this, for instance, Blazor is working great, freaking great. Okay, and it rebuilds. You can also see this cute little icon here. Now this works. Okay, perfect. But we want to see our superheroes. So let's add a new page. Right click the pages folder, add a new Razor component. And let's call this one also superheroes. And as you might have seen here, there is this page directive, and with this page directive, we can already set a route for this page. And maybe we can just copy this one, for instance, from the fetch data component and paste it here, call this superheroes, and also make a blank here. And now we've got our new page already. We do not have another routing page, routing configuration file or anything like that. Like in Angular, for instance, in Angular you have this routing module, but this is not necessary here. We've got the pages, we've got the page directive, that's all we need. And now we could already access this thing, but what I like to do first is adding a nav link here. You see the home link, the counter link, fetch data. So let's just copy this list item here. Put this to, already forgot the name, superheroes, like that. And also change the name, superheroes. And I think there's a people icon. Great, like that. And this should be it already. Saved everything. And let's have a quick look. There is already our nav menu entry. That's quick, right? Love this. We click this and we've got our page. But now we want to make a call, right? So what can we do here now? You see in the fetch data razor, for instance, we could use similar implementations. Actually, you see an HTML table here. You see a for each with this add character here. This is how you can really mix C# code with HTML, and we will actually do exactly the same. But what I do not like is this here. This is the absolutely perfect way, the right way to make a web service call. But to organize this a little bit and use dependency injection, I would like to create a service. So for that, I create a new folder here. And with that, we get a little bit of structure, I'd say. And by the way, you would also do that in a professional application in the server project. So we wouldn't really make a database call here in the controller. I think this is sufficient. This is okay because we have this list here, this dummy list. Let's say it's not from a database table. So we've got this list here in our controller, so we can simply return it. But what we could also do, and what would be the best practice way, I'd say, is to also add services with interfaces. So you get an interface and an implementation class, and inject the service in a with a constructor here in the controller, and then call a method from the service, and the service then makes the database call. And we kind of do the same here in the client app now. So we've got the server folder, and then we create a new item first, which is an interface, and let's call this thing iSuperhero service. Let's make this public. And then we also add an implementation class with add class, and then superhero service. Again, this already implements the iSuperhero service. Let's go there, and the only thing we want here is, again, a method returning a list of superheroes, and we need the shared reference here, get superheroes. All right, save this, and then let's implement this interface automatically. And now what we have to do is add a constructor like that, and we use dependency injection here already for the HTTP client, because the HTTP client, we have to add another reference. As you can see, systemnet HTTP. If I'm too fast, please tell me that in the comments. And maybe just reduce the speed of this video. Anyways, HTTP client, and it says here it provides a base class for sending HTTP requests and receiving HTTP responses from a resource identified by a URI. So, okay, that was a short break because our baby son woke up. Anyways, the HTTP client. All right, and what I like to do here now is use create and assign a field and also add an underscore because this is a private read-only variable. And now with that, we can say HTTP client and then use the method get as JSON async when I'm remembering this properly. Get from JSON async actually. Okay, so get from JSON async. So let's go back here. Get from JSON async, and the as was the get as, actually post as JSON async, but we will see the post method in a second, or not in a second, but in a couple of minutes. Get from JSON async, that's the correct one, and we have to add another reference here, system.net HTTP JSON, and here we can actually add a value of the type that we want to receive, and this is a list of superheroes again. And here now we enter the URL, and as you can see here in the fetch data, it's weather forecast. And when we have a look again at the weather forecast controller, you can see here that the API string is missing. It's up to you if you want to use the API string or not. Some APIs use it, some not. In our case here, you can see that the superhero controller is, or the default controller actually, because we didn't really enter this URL, this route here. This was done by Visual Studio itself or the .NET SDK. So let's simply use it here in our service its API, and then a super hero, right? And similar to the fetch data page again, we get the list here, and instead of just setting it, we want to return it, of course. So what we can do is first also add the async and await keywords, because this is an asynchronous method, and we simply return await HTTP client and then get from JSON async like that. And then in the superheroes page, we inject this service with add inject, another directive, and then we say I superhero service. And what I also want to do here is, because it doesn't recognize the type here, so we can add the namespace to the imports Razor, and that would be using superhero database client and then server. I called this server. Why the hell did I call this server? I want to call this services, like that. And also change this here, and then of course also here and here. As I said, no script or anything. So let's see, imports, that's the one. And now it actually should know this type. Yeah, that's correct. And there's one last thing we have to do in the program CS. You see also with add scope that the HTTP, or that something is registered here, and we have to register our new service here. And we can do this with services add scoped, and then I superhero service, and then superhero service like that, and also add the reference here. And this simply means, or tells our application, that as soon as we inject the iSuperhero service interface, we're telling our app that we want to use this implementation class for that. This is a really big advantage, because if you want to, I don't know, test something, make some changes with another implementation. For instance, you think the get superheroes method should be different, but you don't want to change this thing here or change anything in this class, and then you can simply add another class, so a superhero service 2 class, for instance. And then the program CS, you can say for the iSuperhero service, I want to register the superhero service 2, and you're good to go, because then the superheroes Razor component here would know that you would actually want to use the superhero service 2, so the second implementation. Anyways, that's a little hint or a little information about dependency injection in essence. But to make the final call now, we want to call the superhero service now. And for that, we use a lifecycle method. What's a lifecycle method, you might ask? And here you already see one, the onInitialized async method. This means that on initialization of a component, the stuff you write in there in the body of this method is called. And we can do that exactly the same here. So with protected, override, async, and here you see 3 lifecycle methods: initialized, parameter set, and after render async. And one difference, for instance, maybe you will stumble upon this, is here that on initialization, the component renders, but it could be the case. You might see this in my e-commerce series. Actually, in the e-commerce series, there it happened here on YouTube that we used on initialized async to display the details of a product. But can I show you this? Just have a look. I will insert the info card here, and then you can have a look. And this does not work. For instance, we used a route like product / and then the ID. And in there, you could click a button and change the URL so that you wanted to display another product, but the actual component to display this product is exactly the same. And on initialization, it grabs the ID from the address bar, but as soon as the component has been initialized, it doesn't do that anymore. It doesn't recognize any parameter changes, and parameter is the correct word here, because if you are able to change the parameter in the same component on the same page, then you might want to use on parameter set, because in this case, a change in the parameters is recognized by the component and then it re-renders again. Long story short, we can use on initialized async here, and I do not know why the format is that strange when we hit enter here, but well, we can reformat this, of course. And now what we do is superhero service get superheroes, and that's it. And let's put them here maybe, so we've got our list of superheroes like that. And actually the superhero, I think, client shared. Oh, okay, we have to add another reference here. So using superhero DB shared. So now the model should be available. Yep. And these are our heroes. This is a new list, let's say first. But here now we set our heroes to await superhero service get superheroes. So now what's going on here? Async is missing, I think. Yep, that was the error. So now we do a lot of steps. We initialize the component. We then go to the superhero service. Here's the interface, and here then we make the actual call to the web API. So we jump to the server project, the superhero controller, and then here we return our list that we entered here in the controller. But if we would have added Entity Framework with the SQL Server database, for instance, we would make another jump with Entity Framework to the database and then the whole way back to the client. So be really full stack then in this case. And here this is totally sufficient, I think. And what we can do now is also use a table to display our superheroes. First thing that does make sense is if our heroes count, for instance, is 0, then we display something like, well, let's use a span here, loading, while loading superheroes. And yep, and in the else case, we actually wanna display a table. Let me format this, Jesus, format, come on. Yeah, I think that's okay. We add a table. We can also add a class for this, the table class, because Bootstrap is in this solution automatically. And let's add a header for that. TH for the first name, maybe first a table row, like that. Paste this here. So we got the first name, and then let's copy this. We've got the last name, the hero name, and then hero name, and then the comic. Okay, and then in the T body, we use the for each. So add for each. Actually, there should be a snippet for that, but it doesn't work. Come on, where is it? For each. Nope, not this time. Okay, so I'm lazy, and that's why I want to have a look. And here we say bar forecast and forecasts, and in our case that would be hero in heroes. And now let's see, we want to display the first name, so it's TD, almost like that actually. First the row, of course, so a table row, and then the column. And here now we add hero, and then the first name. And again, we can copy this for the last name, the hero name, and the comic. And here it's the last name, the hero name, and here now it's the comic, and then the name of the comic. Format this, save everything. Did it build? I don't know. Yep, it's rebuilding. And there it is already. That was really quick and it works. Isn't that great? Maybe you want to hit the like button because this works. That's great. Okay, and what I want to show you, well, in the console we do not see much, but we see something in the network tab. Let's reload this stuff. And here you can see the actual call. This is one thing that is great. We make a get call. So we use the HTTP request method get in this case. And we see the superhero call here. We get a 200 OK. And this is the JSON actually. And here we display the list of the heroes in a table. Time for some coffee. Okay, great. Now the next thing would be receiving a single hero maybe. So how would we do that? Maybe we can use a button here, but first let's implement the actual method. Maybe you see here, that is interesting, I did not add an attribute. Here an attribute is added, but this is not really necessary when you only have one single get call that has also the same parameter. But to show you how it's done, let's add another method now for a single hero, also returning an I action result, and let's call this get single superhero, and we have a parameter here now, which would be, yeah, let's add the ID, and then we add the ID1 here and the ID2 here for Batman, and then we simply return okay heroes. Well, let's make this a bit better. We say var hero, and here we want the hero where, let's use find. Let's use, I don't know, does find return null? Not sure about that. First element that matches the condition. Fourth value. Let's use first or default, because here I'm sure that null is returned if the ID is wrong or the ID does not match a hero. So in this case, we say, let me use a lambda expression here. So we want to get the hero, the first hero in the list where the ID matches the given ID. Now, if the hero is null, we return a not found. And we can also add a message like superhero wasn't found. Too bad. Okay, and maybe a smiley. A sad smiley. Okay, otherwise, we want to return our hero. That's it. Okay? So this is how this should work. And now let's try this already. Again with the address bar. So we had the API superhero. Something's wrong here. Oh yeah, okay, we already see an error, and it says ambiguous match exception. So you see now we should add an attribute and a route, because now we have two get calls. And by the way, I didn't say this. How did the controller know that this is a get call? Well, we called this method get. Simple as that. This is a convention by the web API, and when you call a method get something, then it assumes that this is a get call. But it does help, and maybe it's also a good practice to use the attributes here. So for the get superheroes call, we just use the HTTP get. And here now, we also want to provide a parameter for that, maybe even a route. So we could do it like that. We say this is HTTP, an HTTP get call, and then we could also add a route attribute here and enter a route in the, what's that called? I have no idea, as a string. And now what we can also do is we can combine these attributes like that, and then in curly braces we simply add the ID here, save everything, and you see here that this thing is rebuilding, and now it works again. And with that, interesting. Okay, oh yeah, that's the wrong controller name. It's actually like that. And when we add an ID now, 1 for instance, we only get Peter Parker, and with ID 2 we get Batman. And what happens if we add ID 3? Superhero wasn't found. Too bad. So this works like a charm, but that's not a great UI, so maybe we should change that and add another page for this. Okay, so the calls work. That's amazing. And now let's add another method for our service, which would be, or which would return only a single superhero, like that maybe, and also add the ID here. And now in our implementation class, we implement this method, and we want to get the superhero, which is not a list actually. Yep, also add the async keyword, and here now we add the given ID like that. This is our service already. Now let's see, how can we do this? Should we add another page? Superheroes, yeah, maybe. That way I can show you how to use page parameters. Actually pretty simple. So we add another Razor component and call this only superhero, not superheroes. This is superhero now. And again, we add a page directive, superhero, and a page parameter. Like that. Again in curly braces. And then what we can do, we can actually add exactly the same stuff. So we inject the superhero service, and in our code block we also add similar stuff. It's actually a single hero now. Superhero, single superhero, call this hero. And again, on initialization, we call get superhero. And now I have to look this thing up here. I think we have to add an ID. Let me have a quick look. Have to open another solution. First we can fix that. Get superhero, and here's the ID. Let me have a quick look here in our Blazing shop. Where is it? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We have to add this. Oh, and we can also tell this thing that this is an ID, an integer. So we have to add a parameter here actually. And we have the onParameter set async here. We used this one here. So this was the thing I was talking about earlier, that we had to use the onParameter set to make the change of the product possible actually. But anyways, let's add this parameter. And now we got the ID, we have to fix this, and here we also add the ID. What's going on here? Can convert superhero to be shared superhero to super client page superhero. This sucks because these are now called so we really have to, okay, let's do it like that. It's superhero db shared superhero. Yeah, okay, now it gets it, or it doesn't. All right. Okay, let's save this and try this out. Yeah. Okay, let's get back to Chrome, and I just want to see if this works. So we got the URL superhero with ID 1, and it doesn't work. Why did it not work? We got API superhero. It did not use the parameter superhero1. Maybe we have to also add the type. Did not recognize the change. Now it did. Take some time. Don't know why. What's going on? We got an error. Ah, okay. Cannot implicitly convert. Ah, Jesus. Was a stupid name for the page. Ah, come on. Okay. Maybe I should have prepared this. But anyways, we can of course change that to superhero db shared and then superhero, and also add it here like that. And now let's see, no error anymore. It reloads, and what is happening here? Got our call, but it does not use the ID. That's strange. Okay, we've got our superhero Razor with the ID here, and this should actually just use the ID. Get product ID. Using the ID here. Got it there and there and there. No, this should actually work already. Don't know why it isn't. Okay. Superhero ID. Okay, we can try this, of course, with logging the ID in the console. So write line, and then simply this is the ID, like that. Let's see. Ah, this is the call I wanted to see. Did I? Ah, I clicked the wrong one. Jesus, of course. So it worked. It worked already. And we see here that we get Peter Parker, and here it should be Batman. Great. Okay, so maybe I was a bit too fast with switching all the tabs. So again, first, just to make this clear, the route was okay. Calling the page superhero was a stupid idea because now the namespace is superhero DB client page is superhero, and when you just call, or when you just enter superhero here, then it assumes this should be of the page type, but this is of course not correct. I think I could change that by renaming the component, but I tried this before in other projects, and this can lead to trouble actually, because maybe it's fixed when we just restart Visual Studio, but I really don't want to get into this trouble now. And just to clarify, this is how to use page parameters. You see that we need a parameter, and it is case insensitive. As you can see, the I, it's a capital I here, and it already knows by convention, I assume, that you want to set this parameter here, this ID. Important is that you use the parameter attribute here, because this is then in essence similar to the parent-child component communication. And then it knows or grabs the parameter here, it knows the ID, and then it uses this ID for your call in the onInitialization. Okay, but again, using this with the address bar is not that nice. So maybe we can add a button here actually to get to the hero. Let's add another column. And now in here, what I want to do is actually let's add another method, and I don't know, show hero maybe, with an ID, of course. And for that, what we can do here is navigate the user to this page then. And for that we need the navigation manager. And this is a built-in thing. Maybe we get some information here. Provides an Come on, provides an abstraction for querying and managing URI navigation. Yeah, that's it actually. So here again, navigation manager. And in this method, we say navigation manager navigate to, and then it's superhero with the given ID like that. Okay, and now in here, let's add a simple button with maybe button primary show, and we can bind to the on-click event, and here we call show hero, and this is interesting now, with the hero ID. Now, does this work? Let's see. We save this, we save everything again. It already tells you that this is not working. So we have to make this or use this in another way with a lambda expression, and now it works. So we actually have to write it like that, or use a lambda expression in essence to provide a parameter. If we wanted to call the function without a parameter, then it would work without this lambda expression, but with the parameter we need this expression. So let's save everything again. It is rebuilding, and let's have a look. Here we are, and here we see our buttons now. Let's click show, and we're getting to the proper URL. That's nice, but we do not see any information, so maybe, well, that's just a little how do I say this, a little design stuff. Let's say this is, or first maybe, how would we do this? Maybe we initialize this guy with null, and then we say if, again, hero is null, then we say something like a span again, hero is loading, and in the else case we say this is, and then hero. Actually, I wanted to, there it is. Hero name. I wanted to use the hero name. There it is. Okay, great. This is Spider-Man, for instance, also called hero first name, hero last name. This hero, let's add a span here. This hero belongs to, and then hero comic name. Okay. All right, let's see. It's rebuilding. Show. This is Spider-Man, also called Peter Parker. This hero belongs to Marvel. And this is the case for Batman. Great, okay, this works. Now, of course, it's not beautiful. We could also add an image and show a table with all the data. Maybe we got some attributes or skills of these heroes, but maybe this would be a bit too much for this short tutorial. So we got the get call to get a bunch of heroes, so a collection of entities in essence, and we got the single entity covered. And of course, now it's getting more interesting. What about a post call, for instance? All right, so in this case, let's go back to Visual Studio, and again we start in the controller. And since I'm a lazy programmer, let me just copy this stuff. We add a post method now. We do not need a route actually. And here we say, let's call this create superhero. And I want to send a superhero in the body. And this is, I hope, the shared one. Yep, okay. And let's make this really simple. I would just say that we add this hero now to our collection, and then we return all the heroes so that we see that the hero was added to our collection. And this is actually already the controller method. And in here now we do something similar, but we get again a list of superheroes, create superhero, and we add, here it is, the shared one, nice. And we add a superhero like that. We implement the interface again, add the async keyword, and now we return. Now it's time for the post as JSON async, and we post a superhero. So this is now the type that we send to the web service. URL is API superhero, and now as a second argument we add our hero. And what's going on here? Send post request. Oh yeah, sure. Now this is different, of course. So the result is something else now. It is, as you can see here, HTTP response message, but the actual heroes now are result content, then read, not a string. Is there another one? Read from. Now it's read from JSON async, and this is actually here the list of superheroes, and that's it. This should be it. Yeah. Okay. All right, and now we return the hero. So of course this is different now. Why is this not working? Okay, so we just had to, well, add the await keyword. Of course, it is an async method, so makes sense. Okay, so now this is how to get the hero, actually, the heroes when we add them. And we could simplify that. Okay, we do not have to use the type here, so this also works. With create superhero, we send a superhero via the body, and the result then is again an HTTP response message. And with that, we have to access the content first and then read from JSON, use this method, and use the type then that we expect, and then we get the actual heroes. So this is all the C# stuff in essence, and now we add the form to create a new superhero. And now let me think about where to put this. So we add a new page maybe. Or maybe we use a shared one. Yeah, let me try it this way. So we simply add a razor component, and this would be called edit superhero, like that. This is not a page. Now what I want to do now, again, not prepared this, so I'm not really sure how to put this or how to use it, but let's do this kind of live. Maybe I should have done a live stream maybe, so this whole thing would make more sense. But edit superhero, I want to use this shared component now in the superheroes page and maybe just show the form below the table. Of course there are other ways, better ways maybe, but either way we've got the edit superhero component then here, and now let's use an edit form where we create a hero first, and then maybe we can use the same one to edit a superhero, and that's why I called it edit superhero and not create superhero. But let's see. The first thing we need is a property, not a property, yeah, a property, do we need, yeah, a property, a model. In essence, it's a model. So this thing would be superhero DB shared superhero. And this again is our hero. And then we use an edit form. And this edit form now needs a model. That's why I used the term model. And this is our hero. And then there's also a method called onSubmit, onValidSubmit, and so on. I have a video that's already online about forms and validation. Maybe I remember to add the info card, so you should check this one out if you want to use validation here. I'd say you don't, so let's just use onSubmit and add a method called, well, submit or handle submit, maybe that's a better name. Handle submit, like that. So we need this method here, handle submit. And let me first just add a write line. Submit was called. Okay. And now we use an input text component. This is now a built-in component in Blazor WebAssembly. And here this will be bind to the hero first name. There are a couple ways to do this, but let's try it that way. And then the last name, the hero name. Now the comic would be interesting because this is a relationship. So we have the last name, we have the hero name. And let me have a quick look. Blazor Battles maybe. And here in the register component where, yeah, I use bind value here. Maybe that's the better option. Yeah, let's use this one. Well, we can see what is happening here. Maybe also display the hero first name. Okay, and of course we need a button. So let me just copy this. And down here there's a button. And we call this one submit now. Okay, and now in the superheroes razor, we add below here maybe. Or in this case. And this is now the edit superhero component. All right. Okay, let's have a look. We've got an error. And this thing says, edit form requires either a model parameter or an edit context parameter. Please provide one of these. Well, actually, I thought we have this model parameter here. And this is not working. So let's have a quick look again in the Blazor Battles. Got the user register here, for instance. And maybe we have to add this one. Wrong project. That's the one. Ah, Jesus. Hate that this is not reloading every time I save something. Now it's telling us that something different is wrong. Value, yeah. This is not working. Bind value. And now let's see. Rebuilding again. Error. Save this. It's not rebuilding. Now it's rebuilding and reloading. And now we got our input fields. Nice. Finally, Jesus. Okay, but this really doesn't look nice. So maybe we can add a class here. And I also added a div. Yeah. Let's use it. So in our edit superhero form, we add class, form control. Could have also added a label, of course. But let's see. Or maybe we use placeholders. This should also work. Placeholder. Does this work? Actually, I'm not sure. Let's try this. First name. Save it. It's rebuilding. Nah. Placeholder's not working. That's unfortunate, really. So let's do it in another way. We add a div. So I really could have copied this stuff from the other project, and the class for this one is form group. Okay, so form group would be the one. And then let's copy this again here and also here. Also add the label here and here. And then the closing div here and here. Let's format this, and this is the first name, this is the last name, and this is the hero name. And now it again does not rebuild, but now it does. We have a look, and this looks a lot better. Let's say Tony Stark, and this is Iron Man. We hit enter. Submit was called Tony. Great. Okay, so we got this covered. But now what about the comics? And regarding the comics, we can use a select maybe. And since I'm already at it, I can copy it from here. Here I use the radio button. Yeah, maybe I can use this again. So let's use it here as well. This was the start unit, but let's add a comic here. And this can be removed. But I actually really want to use the select. Let's use this one. That's okay. Okay, and here it's hero comic, and in this case, yeah, we could it would be correct to actually make a call first to the web service, get all the comics, store them in another service, maybe in the superhero service, and then iterate through these. But I'm not really sure. Should I do it that way? Yeah, of course we can do it, or a really ugly way would be to just copy them and then, okay, let's use the correct one. Yeah, let's do this real quick. So we have another get method, and then we add the route comics, get comics, and we return our comics. At least I'm trying to. Get comics. Okay, this would be the controller, and now in the service here, let's just use the same service. Get comics, and here we get a list of comics. Implement the method here, and this is asynchronous. Get we get a list of comics, and actually I want to set them so prop list of comics, we have to add them in the interface as well. So these are the comics, a new list of comics first, and then here we say comics is now await. That's okay, but actually we do not return them, so we can change this in the interface. Let's go there. It's just like that, and then we add the list of comics here. Call this comics, and this should be it. So we have the comics property in the interface. We implement it here. It's first an empty list. And then we have in this method get comics. And of course we have to call this method. So maybe here also in the uninitialized we call await superhero service get comics, like that. And then in the edit superhero component, we use the superhero service. So superhero service, but it's not injected, so we should do that with add inject I superhero service, and here now we iterate through the comics. And then we say this is not a unit, this is, Jesus, actually refactor this with comic. Got the ID and the name in this case. And now this should be it actually, I think. And maybe we can do something else. We can inject the JS runtime. JS runtime, there it is. JS runtime to display the complete object. So JS runtime invoke void async, and now we can call the console log method with the hero here. Save everything, and now let's try this again. Tony Stark, you see the call was made, and now we got the comics. Take some time. I have no idea why. Comics, or do I have to enter something? Ah, I see. Aha, that's interesting. It's not done on an, yeah, no, wait a sec. Superhero service comics. Actually, I thought that when we access the page that this thing is called Oh, but it doesn't recognize the change. So we would have to, yeah, of course, we would have to add an event, and that's an option to to tell the edit superhero component that this thing changed, or what we can do too, and maybe this makes more sense, is actually make the call in the edit superhero component. So let's save this and paste this thing here and only make the call here. Now let's have a look. It is rebuilding. Yeah, you see now it's making the call on initialization, and we see the comics here, and we cannot set them. Why is that? Input ready group doesn't support the type. Shit, comic. What the heck? Hero. Comic. Ah, I see. Of course, this is a complex type. So, what we have to do here now is... Jesus, but that's not nice. So we have to add a comic ID. Let's set this to 1. This is then the comic ID. We iterate through this, and in the handle submit, we yeah, of course. Okay, we can do it like that. We then say that the comic, Jesus, that way we would send the ID of the comic. Well, there are again a couple of ways to do this. I know I'm repeating myself, but I did not prepare this, and now I see that there, well, maybe I should have done this because I see different ways to do this. We do not add a database here. So, but even with the database, of course, there are different ways to implement this stuff. What we can do here now is, well, one way would be to set the comic here on the client and send it with the complete object to the service. Another way would be to add a new model, actually a DTO, a data transfer object, where we would just use the first name, the last name, the hero name, and also the ID of the comic. So actually we would not use the superhero object here. We would add another model, call it hero create DTO or something like that, where we would just use the first name, last name, hero name, not the ID, and also not the comic, but instead of the comic, an integer with the comic ID. That would make sense, and then the server does all does the job, actually does all the other work, where we then map the first name to the first name of the actual superhero object. We would set the ID, but this makes more sense with the database, because in this case the ID would be added automatically by the database, and the only thing that the server would then have to do is add this relation here. So it would get the comic ID as an integer and then look up all the comics from the database and then match it, or find the matching comic, and then add the correct comic to the superhero. Or the other way would actually be that we have another property here called comic ID, and this would already be enough, because with the post, or with the creation of this new object, the entity framework would actually match them. Well, I hope this makes sense. So, well, in essence, you just wanted to learn all the CRUD operations, and here are a couple of more issues, more that I was thinking actually. So let's just hit the comic and then we're done, I guess. And here we just get the, let's say we get the superhero service comics first or default where the comic ID equals the comic ID, like that. Okay. It is not rebuilding, or is it? Is it? What was that? I just wanted to... Okay, I click Marvel, but DC is selected. That's interesting. Now, by default, DC is selected. Why the heck is this? Got a new superhero. This is actually empty. I have no idea why. Do you know why this is the case? If so, please tell me in the comments. But let me try this now. I want to add Tony Stark, who is Iron Man. I click submit. I see the object. That's nice. That is something I wanted to show you actually. Comic ID 0 Marvel. So this does not work at all. It's always Marvel. What is going on here? Well, let's have a look again. What am I missing? This is the comic ID. And for all the comics, I see the comic ID, I see the comic name. We are binding the comic ID here. How did I do this in the other project? Not in this one, in this one. Blazer Petals. I also have a start unit ID. ID and title. And down here, well, it's the start unit ID of the user object. The user register object. And in this case... Oh, wait a sec. User start unit ID. There it is. By default, this thing is set to 1. So this also just works. And in the superhero database now, the comic ID is 0 by default. And when we receive the comics, let's have a look again. In the network tab, we see, aha. Why didn't you tell me this? Of course. Maybe we should change this. ID 1 and 2. Jesus Christ. Okay, and let's say the default one is ID 1. We saved everything again, and now we see that Marvel is the first one, the proper one, and now we can change it. Okay, nice. So Tony Stark is Iron Man. Submit. We see the ID. Of course, this is not correct. But then Tony Stark, and we see the comic, and with DC we see this. And let me change something else here. Again, we are not using Entity Framework in the database. So with the creation here, we say that the hero ID is heroes max ID plus 1. So we get the proper ID here. And then we can do another thing actually. When we get the result, or maybe we can make the call now. So let's say await superhero service, create superhero hero, and this now is an async. Wait, does this work? Yeah. And now I want to make the call. So Tony Stark is Iron Man. We are making the call. We get it back with the proper ID. That's nice. But we do not see him here. And this sucks. And as you can see, this thing was initialized. So I really want to see him. Or, okay, of course, it's not static. Wait a sec. So we have to make this static here. Is it really? Yep, it is. Let's add Tony Stark again. Hit submit. Yeah, and now we see him. Okay, so this does work. This is nice, but I actually want to get him, or the new hero. Could of course also be a female hero. So we get him or her. I want to get him or her as soon as this is done, actually. And let's say that we want to, let's get to the method. Here where's the creation? We return the heroes, but we could actually also set them, right? So let's do it like that. We add them here. A list of superheroes. A list of superheroes. And then when we get them, our heroes then is await. And we also return the heroes. Yeah, why not? And now we have to do something. Wait a sec. So we also set them here, return them here, and also add the property here. List of superheroes, heroes. Okay. Let's see. I think we have to add the event. But let's see. Tony Stark, Iron Man, return. Yeah. So actually, this should be set, but the page, the superhero component, does not recognize the change. And for that, we have to add an event. And again, let me have a look here, because I actually did this, of course, already. So in the Blazar Battles project, for instance, when we, well, what can we do, or what can we use? The unit service, maybe. A unit service, does it have an event? Nope. Banana service has an event on change. So we can add the on change event here. Let's do that in our superhero database as well. And now here, of course, we implement it again. Implement interface. Here's the on change event. And then when we create a superhero, for instance, we can call on change invoke like that. And then we have to subscribe to the on change event. And as you can see here, when we search for that, it's here, it's in the top menu. Where we subscribe to the event, and we also implement then the iDisposable interface in the corresponding Razor component, so that we unsubscribe on dispose. And the thing that we want to call then is state has changed, and this is a method, as you can see here, that notifies the component that its state has changed, and when applicable, this will cause the component to be re-rendered. All right, let's try this. So in our superhero database and in the where is it? There it is. Superhero component first, inject iDisposable. We already got the uninitialized async method, and here now we say superhero service onChange plus equals state has changed, like that, and then also void dispose, and here we say superhero service onChange minus equal state has changed, like that. Okay, and we have an error here. Inject implements, not inject. Implements, and we still have an error. Superheroes disposed can implement public, of course. And now, all right, let's have a look. The final test, I hope. Tony Stark, Iron Man. We hit submit and it does not work. This guy is returned. Why the heck is this not working? Superhero service create onChange invoke. onChange invoke. Let's see. This is actually how this is done. onChange, state has changed, and it really should be re-rendered. Let's see. I could change this, of course, and we could do something like superhero service heroes and change this. In this case, you wouldn't need this property here. We just call this and go to the implementation. I think this still works. This doesn't really need the event. Yeah. But on submit. Now it works. Maybe we had to rebuild the app again. So let's reload. Yeah. Okay, I think that the state was not correct. The state of the application. Maybe it wasn't rebuilt properly, something like that. But as you can see now, this should actually work. So Tony Stark is Iron Man. We hit submit and now it works. Jesus Christ. Okay, so maybe if this was too fast, what we had to do here with the post, the easy part was the backend, right? But then what we wanted to do is in the edit superhero, we have this edit form with the model and the onSubmit. I have to turn on the lamp here. I don't see anything. It's getting late, really late, almost 2 hours in. And with that form, we had to bind to certain properties here of the hero object or the hero model. And we also need for the radio group, it's actually the same with the select box. We need an integer value, also works with a string. but not with a complex type, as we now know. And then we iterate through the comics. We made another get call for the comics, and here now we grab the ID and the name, and the value here is important because this is the thing that would be set to the comic ID. And then in here we make the actual call now to create the new hero, and then we added an event and subscribe to that event in the superhero razor component. No, in the superheroes razor component to reload or re-render the table with all our heroes. And it's actually good that we did this, because now when we remove or added a hero, then we also want to change the table, of course. So let me first remove this, then this looks better. Okay. Okay, great. I hope you're still with me, even with these stupid errors and with looking up my other code, but you know, sometimes it has to be that way. Maybe you're learning something, I don't know. It would be nice to click if you click the like button, and maybe give me some feedback in the comments, and if this suits your needs, or if you're learning something, if you think this is good, if I should continue actually, or make another video like that, maybe add Entity Framework with another episode, because I think this is getting well, it's getting late actually, and we're almost 2 hours in, so Entity Framework not in this episode. But if you like this episode and you say, yeah, please give me more, then I would be happy to add Entity Framework here with the SQL Server database or SQLite. I don't know, tell me what you want to see. But I definitely need more coffee. All right, so we got the get calls covered, get all heroes, get all comics, get a single hero. Now we can add a new hero, and now maybe update a hero, which is the, I would say, the most difficult part. For that, let me think about that. Another controller method maybe would be a good start. And for that, we use the put request method. So this would be HTTP put, call this update. It's the U in the CRUD operations. So we got the C, we got the C for create, R for read, which is get. Now it's the update, the U. Crazy, huh? And here, again, a couple of ways to do this. What we can do is we can send a hero from the body with the ID and grab the ID then from the model, or another good practice is to add the ID here in the URL. So in this case, this would be a put call with API superhero / then the ID, similar to get as to receiving a single superhero. And then we say, or we first look for this hero here. So we can do it like that. It's actually exactly the same. I'd like to call these things, or these objects, then DB hero for database hero, because actually I get this thing from the database. And why not? Let's do it exactly the same way here. So this is the database hero. And if this thing is null, then again, we say superhero wasn't found. But if it was found, then, let's say, yeah, why not? I mean, let's just replace it. That's the easiest part. In the database way, maybe we would map them. Maybe we would use DTOs. Maybe we would use a bit or use more best practices. But again, it's just about the CRUD operations. And I thought we would be done in an hour, and now we got 2. So let's try to keep this simple. And the DB hero then would be just replaced by the hero. I think that should be it. And this would be the call and the controller. And now here we do something similar. Let's just paste it here. Call this update. Again, I want to get the complete updated list. And here we have the ID again. And now we implement this. Implement interface. And now let me copy this. We use put as JSON async now. Again with the ID. It's an async call. And we also add the hero, and the heroes are the result. This should already be it. And now the hardest part is the form. So we go to, let me think about that. We have the superheroes. Maybe we add another button to edit the hero, and then we put this hero, or maybe we can use the parameter here. Let's try that. So we add another column like that, and here we say edit, and then we call a method void edit hero, also with the ID now. Well, the easiest way would be to use another page, I think. But what we can also do is we can add a hero here, superhero DB shared superhero, edit hero, hero to edit or something like that, hero to edit, which is null. And then we add a parameter here, actually, edit hero, which has to be a property then. So prop superhero DB shared superhero. This is the hero to edit. And should I really do it like that? This is the hero, this is the parameter. Of course, we could use the hero here as a parameter, which is a new superhero in the beginning. You see, I'm thinking. I'm thinking. Let's see. Let's try it. Let's try to use this guy. So this is the hero, and this is a parameter now. And we set this now to hero to edit, which is null. So actually, I have no idea if this is working. So by default, this thing is null. And here we say edit hero with the ID. And here then we say hero to edit is superhero service heroes find, and then where the hero ID is the ID. Okay. let's freaking test this. Okay, it's rebuilding. Yeah, we already get errors. Was thinking that. What parameter add context? Let's see. We got the hero here. What if I don't set it? I do not set the parameter. It's rebuilding, then it works. When I set it and I say this is a new superhero, what's happening then? Works as well. Okay, and I said, oh nice. This is awesome. This is really awesome. Well, a sucky way to say to see if this is an update or a creation, you can set the ID by default, set the ID to null, to 0, and then quite simply when we go to our component and then handle submit, we have to decide, is this a post or is it a put, is it a creation or an update? And well, what we can do now is, if the hero ID is 0, then this really is create, and else, yeah, and else this is an update. Let's test that real quick. And let's not do the call now. It's okay. This is a create. Enter anything here. Again, create. Now make an edit. And it's an update. Oh, beautiful. This works better than I thought. This is great. I love Blazor. I love it so much. Okay. But please, this is really, well, it works, but in production, I wouldn't do it like that. Maybe I would use another flag or something. Or actually, I think I would use another page for the form, where we then say, okay, edit or update, and maybe use the URL. I don't know. Let me think about that. But this is a great way for this tutorial. This works. This is amazing. So we've got the creation here. So the ID is 0, and that's how we know that we want to create a new superhero. But if the ID is not 0, then we want to do an update. And we do this with update superhero. We send the hero, and again, we could do it in another way as well, and simply, or just use the hero object here. And in that case, on the server side in the controller, we would just grab the ID from the hero object. But either way, it works. And now, well, maybe I was a bit too fast. Maybe it doesn't work, but let's see. I want this stuff to be rebuilt. Now it's rebuilding. Great. Okay, let's make this test now. Tony Stark. And I forget to set the hero name. It was created, and now I want to add, or let's say I want to edit Bruce first, and now I want to edit Tony. And I want to add the hero name now. Let's hit submit. And we see that it was making something. There's a put call with superhero 3. And we get them back, but the hero name is still null. Now this is interesting. This is interesting and really sad. Update superhero. We got the hero here with the ID. I don't know. Let's have another look in the edit superhero again. Update hero. Well, we locked the hero, so this is definitely, we set this. And this should be sent to the service. Actually, we get the hero here. This is what we sent to the... Okay, maybe we have to debug this. Let's stop this. And now in the superhero controller, I set a breakpoint and start this now that way, because when we use the run button, we can debug this thing. Let me keep that open. You see the port is different now. Go to superheroes, hit edit, Batman 2, hit submit, and we are here. Says Batman 2, ID is 2, this is also the ID 2. So actually, okay, but it's not. I didn't do the update. Jesus. So yeah, I of course have to reset the object in the list. So what we can do is use the index of, I think. So let me just try this. Index would be heroes index of, and then db hero, and then heroes index is hero. Let's save this and restart this thing. And I closed Chrome somehow. Okay, let's try this again. There it is. Superheroes, edit, Batman 2, submit. Now it works. Great. And Batman is now part of... Oh, of course. We have to change that as well. But maybe I leave this up to you. What do you think? Okay, first let's stop this and run this again with the console. And let's have a quick look. Is there a quick way to fix this in the edit when we go to the edit superhero comic ID? Yeah, maybe on initialization, get comics, and then we say comic ID. Comic ID is hero. Comic ID should be it already. All right. Let's open the console again. Superheroes. Oh, the comic is null. You know what? Maybe let's just initialize it. Come on, give me the object. This is a new comic. And the comic ID by default is 1. Save that again. It's rebuilding. And now we have no error anymore. Marvel is the default. Let's hit edit, and this is not working. Yeah, it's not on initialization. Maybe on parameters set. I'm not sure if this is an async one. Yep, like that. It's rebuilding. Nice. Isn't that crazy? Okay, nice. So this now works as well. We say Batman 2 and we see Batman 2 here. And we can also say Batman again. We can edit this one, show them still, of course. And can we also say Tony Stark? Well, let's try it like that. Iron Man, hit return. There it is. Oh, there's a typo. So let's hit edit now. Tony Stark, submit. Nice. One thing, just to make this a bit better in terms of the usability, create a new hero, or not H3, edit, and then we say hero name if hero null ID we use the ID is null, then we create a new hero, and in the else case we edit the hero, create a new hero, edit Batman, edit Spider-Man. Because the thing is, or maybe we should add a create button, but that's not really necessary now. I would just initialize this hero object, then this property with a new hero. But let's say we have Tony Stark again here with Iron Man. Hit submit, and this is still the creation. Right, so you see this would not be an update, and that's why I wanted to add this. So we see that this is really still the state where we want to create a new hero, but when we now click edit, we see, okay, we edit the hero now. Well, all right. Only deleting a superhero is left, so let's do this real quick. This should really be quick. And actually, let's copy this one again. The request method is delete with an ID. We call this method delete. We only need the ID. Again, we check if the ID does actually exist. And in this case now we say db heroes, actually heroes remove, and here we can add the db hero like that. And we again return all the heroes, and that's already it for the controller. And again, we add another method in the interface, call it delete superhero with an ID. Implement this stuff real quick. Where is it? Here it is. Implement interface. Where is it? Here it is. And we call, what do we call? We call delete async. Really? Okay. With this URL. What's the problem here? The async keyword, of course. Okay, and this thing returns an HTTP response message. Read from JSON async. All right, and now in the edit hero, that's not true. In the superheroes again, the last column, delete. there it is, delete hero. And the method now. Delete hero. And here we just say superhero service. Delete superhero ID. And that's it. I think. Maybe I forgot something. I don't know. Let's try to rebuild this. Okay. I got the delete button, hit delete, and it's gone. Jesus. That was quick. Right? Oh my god. Yeah, that's the only one left. Nice. Okay, this works. This seems to work. Let's try to add another one for the last time. So deletion works, get works. And now we add one. And maybe let's add Bruce Wayne again. Batman, DC, submit. He's here. And now we can... Did I select DC? Submit? No, I didn't. Okay. Whew. So delete this one. Can edit this. Can say this is Marvel or DC. It's changed. And of course we can display the single heroes as well. Nice. Okay, now let me do one last thing. I want to commit this to GitHub so you will be able to get the complete code, create Git repository. Let's call this Blazing Superheroes. That's nice. Okay, not private. Should be on GitHub. And then let's create and push. And this should be it then. Okay, that's it. Maybe it was a bit confusing. Some errors happened, some things I did not know. And I had to look them up, but I still hope that you are kind of satisfied with this video and you learned something. If so, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button, maybe even subscribe to my channel. This really does make a difference and it would mean a lot to me. Maybe you also want to subscribe to my newsletter. In this case, you would get information like these here in your inbox and you would be notified about upcoming courses or course updates. Currently, I'm working on an e-commerce course, a really big, comprehensive e-commerce course, similar to the e-commerce e-commerce series on the YouTube channel, on my YouTube channel here. But either way, maybe you just want to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it, and I won't spam you, I promise. I really just write rarely an email, actually, maybe once a month. But apart from that, thank you so much to all my supporters who bought me a coffee, and maybe you want to support me too. As you can see here, really need this. And that's the only way I can do tutorials like that. And the last thing I can say, you see the thumbnail in the back. Maybe if you want to dive deep into Blazor WebAssembly, then you want to join my Blazor WebAssembly full stack bootcamp, and in this case you just have to check out the link in the video description. In this bootcamp we create a classic online browser game with a JSON web token authentication, so users can register, they can build an army of units of fighters and then fight against other users, climb the leaderboard and become the best of them all. So maybe you want to check it out. There's also a 2-hour preview here on my channel. Check out the info card, or you already want to enroll, would really appreciate that, of course, and then check out the link in the video description. Alright, and now this should be it. That was over 2 hours, longer than I expected. and now it's time to go to bed. Okay, and please feedback. This was really unprepared, no script, nothing at all. I just thought maybe I would do a video that is kind of live, and this really was kind of live. And yeah, now I can just say, Jesus Christ, I can just say thank you very much for watching. I see you next time. Take care.